This was deemed the impossible project, a logistic and civil nightmare.
I'm just saddened at where we were at in society at the time.
20,000 laborers that were deceased after 7 years, man. That
is nuts.
The president was the only one in the government making more than the chief engineer on this project. Tell me that is not crazy.
That is a good looking shirt.
Just, getting it out there.
If you're not watching on video, Eddie's wearing one of our new shirts that says "Go build something awesome" on it. It's kind of like a tagline.
TM.
We're figuring out how to trademark. If anybody knows, it's not like anybody's going to care, but we care, right? It's our thing.
It's the line.
It's the line. Go build something awesome, right?
Yeah.
So that's good. It's a good looking shirt though. We get to hand some out at NASC. So we got to meet a few of you people out there, which was a good time. Hang out at the Blue Beam booth for a little while.
That was an excellent time, getting to hang out with all the people, meet people in person.
Yeah.
Got some pictures. I mean, actually, people took pictures with us.
Yeah, that's the worrying part of it, honestly.
And wasn't sure what to do with that.
Yeah.
You ever just think in this thing, like we have pulled the wool over the eyes of like all 5 people that listen to the show?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They don't know or see each other, so they think there's a lot more than 5.
They do.
Yeah.
They do. It's a nice little ruse we got going here, you know? We got T-shirts. We got like a studio and stuff.
Mom, just keep listening.
5 times a week, Mama. Come on.
keep clicking that play button.
Keep playing it, all right? We got bills to pay.
That ain't working out so good either.
Yeah. All right. Well, this week, Panama Canal, baby.
I'm pumped about this one.
We got a lot of research here. Lee outdid himself. He typically does a great job, but man, we got 4 pages here, y'all.
This topic, though,
4 pages.
A lot of historical fun.
Of which we know you geek out for.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, also, the historicity word that I said, back and when.
Yes,
I'm still proud of that.
Let's go back to that. I still am not convinced that that's a word.
No, it has been looked up.
Historicity.
Yes.
Did Lee back you up in the show notes or anything like that? Historicity.
Jennifer Castenson came back at me in a comment and was like, had to go look it up. But
historicity.
Yeah, historicity. There you go. It's for your Scrabble, if you play that kind of thing.
An effort to assert the historicity of poetry and the political power of poets. Oh.
Yeah. This is not something... I didn't even think this was a word that was all that out there.
Wow. That's all right. Okay. You made me a believer. Historicity. Historicity.
Next time you're playing Scrabble.
This should be an ad for Word of the Day toilet paper. Honestly, it's one of those that might be on there.
I thought about submitting it to Morning Brew.
Morning Brew?
Yeah, because they've got a Word of the Day.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's a
good one. I had no idea that would be one that people would be like, oh, that's a word, but...
Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. Cool. Well, let's actually talk about the Panama Canal now.
A lot of historicity in the Panama Canal.
So much historicity.
A little transition there. You can't say historicity. Wait till you get to isthmus.
Isthmus. Okay, we're moving on. All right.
It's like saying rural.
Dude, yes. I cannot freaking say that word.
That's a tough one.
I feel like a moron every time I do. I'm like, yeah, it's not like when I'm telling people that mom and dad live out on a farm, I avoid rural
settings. Rural.
I get in my head about it, man.
You just got to kick it out there.
Rural.
There you go. Well done.
You just got to growl it out.
Get your gut into it, man.
Rural.
And, this reminds me of a famous scene in Dumb and Dumber when he's trying to read and he's like, and he's like, the. Yeah, it's toughy.
It's such a toughie. Classic. Yeah, I watched that one on the plane out to San Antonio, or part of it at least, and I can only take that movie in small chunks.
That was the jetway scene, really. Getting on an airplane and the whole, I fell off the jetway again.
Yeah, that's pretty hilarious. That's a pretty good one. Okay, Eddie, you want to do the specs?
I'm the one that's unfocused today. Yes,
Yes,
I'd
you
love
are
to do
the one that's
specs.
unfocused
Let me
today.
get focused.
Okay.
The specs for this Joker.
How much espresso have you had today?
A lot.
Okay.
We're going back.
We're going back. We're going back. Sorry, guys.
Darn it.
I'm sorry. We're
were
gonna
so
we're gonna
close.
get here. We're gonna get here. But just bringing you guys into our office for just a moment. All right. We have a Keurig machine. All right. It's not like Keurig brand. It's an instant brand. Doesn't matter.
No.
But it makes espresso. It takes those espresso pods on it. Okay. So I went into the kitchen the other day and I pulled out the little shelf, little thing that we got underneath of it. I had no idea. And I don't know where they came from. I think, honestly, God put them there for us. Like, he just was like, it's been a rough week. Bam. Espresso pods.
Like manna from heaven.
Like manna from heaven, right?
Yeah.
So we had these little espresso pods that we had no idea that we had laying around. And so I was like, holy crap, man, sweet. So I pop one of those jokers in there along with the coffee. So you do the K-cup for the coffee, and then you put the espresso pod in there, and it's so good.
So I'm fairly certain it's called a red eye.
It's a lot of caffeine.
Tyler, it's a lot of caffeine.
It's a metric crap ton of caffeine, okay?
It gets me so amped. It makes me sweat through shirts.
That's why you're
black ones.
That's why you're wearing black.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
So the other day, I'm like, hey, Eddie, do you know we have espresso pods? And he's like, what? So now every time I come up here to the office, I'm like, Eddie's just like, just jittering over in the corner.
I'm still as can be. I mean, that's pretty for me.
I mean, for you, yeah, you
for
do
me,
have shaky hands. I got pretty shaky hands too, but hey, whatever.
Again, we digress.
Yeah, okay, let's talk about digging the Panama Canal.
This is near coffee country. All right, let's get into it. The Panamanian Canal.
Do it.
The parcel of land that we're dealing with here is 10 miles wide. We got a swath, 10 miles wide and 50 miles long.
That's a big parcel. That's a very
85
big parcel.
feet of elevation change. That's 85 feet difference from one side to the other. So, and that's
a few feet.
Okay, so you're going across land. So sea level to sea level, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, okay. I got you.
You got me.
I understand how that works.
Well, then, hey there, Skip. How long does it take a ship to get through?
It takes
Did you read?
8 to 10 hours.
Good job.
Yeah,
All right,
look
there
at
you
me,
go.
guys. I can read the reads. Read
300 million cubic yards.
Anyway, sorry.
300 million cubic yards of earth that was moved for this project. 52 million gallons of water displaced for each transit. And I love our researcher because he put it in the context of bathtubfuls. Harken back to the Hoover Dam episode.
Let's go.
742,857 bathtub fulls of water. That's about what it takes the Hoover Dam to spill out 14 minutes. We didn't even have to ask him, folks.
No,
he just did it.
I love
The question behind the question. He knew.
I love we're in construction and we have the tools and the understanding to measure things.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we do. And yet,
And we're measuring in bathtubs.
and we're still measuring in bathtubfuls. That's the
which is the equivalent of a cubit. Nobody really knows quite how large their bathtub full is. So
some bathtubfuls are larger than others.
there's some idealistic bathtub full out there, man. This cuts the ocean-going distance from New York to LA from 13,000 miles to 5,200 miles. Historically, though, this goes way back. Spanish explorer Vasco Núñez de Balboa said it right. I can promise you that.
Well done.
In
Well done.
1513, he is the guy that first discovers, there's not so much land here between the one ocean and the other. We'll call it an isthmus.
An isthmus?
And you sound like Fez when you said that. And I was counting on that. It's
Thanks.
awesome.
An isthmus.
An isthmus. With a ficus.
Speaking of that, did you hear Mike Tyson is fighting?
Oh, God. You're probably going to be next on the list now there, brother.
And now I'm canceled. I'm sorry, guys.
All right. So in 1534, Charles V, who was the Holy Roman Empire at the time, if you didn't know that, ordered a survey
I knew that personally.
Ordered a survey just to find out what we were dealing with over there. And they said, well, I mean, the results were highly specific. Sorry, King Charles, but it's impossible.
I want to go back to something here. Okay, so the Spanish explorer Vasco Núñez de Balboa.
Yes.
That
Well,
one.
yeah.
Okay, 1533.
No, 1513.
1513, sorry. I might have dyslexia. Anyway, so I want to know how the mapping was done back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
It's like cartography.
Right.
Yeah.
Study of maps.
Maps. Learn that in National Treasure.
You know. Anyway, like, do they draw dots and then like link the dots together as they go? This is something that bewilders me, and it's probably a Google away. I realize that. But let's just talk about that for a second. Like how amazing it is that he was able to map all of that stuff out by hand and like was able to say, hey, yeah, there's a spot here. You can probably connect the worlds together. That's pretty sweet.
Well, I guess when you go all the way down around South America,
Knowing a shorter way is...
and the kids are in the back seat the whole time saying, are we there yet? You know,
I've got cabin fever. You know, that sort of thing.
That whole
right?
bit.
Yeah.
I saw that one in the Muppets. It's not good. So nobody wants cabin fever.
Can you believe that people listen to us seriously?
I do.
Do they actually, do they listen to us
They're about to
seriously?
learn so much, though.
Okay.
All right. In
This-
1881, France.
This is an alert here, guys. It's about to get good. So Eddie, go.
It's about to get
It's
good.
about to get good.
Episode shuts down.
Sweeping declaration. Go.
1881, France breaks ground on the canal. And
Did not go well.
it didn't go well. It was bad.
It was a bad time for France.
Okay, so by 1888, the accidents and disease, they were rather prevalent. 20,000 laborers that were deceased after 7 years, man.
That is nuts.
Yeah, that's
That's crazy town, man.
like
And
having
I
a
think
war.
no,
I mean, this
like
is bad.
legitimately, it was like a war. And honestly, the sad part of this too is that it was taking advantage of a lot of the, people from the Caribbean islands, Antigua, Barbados, and Jamaica. So you're taking a lot of those people and you're just chucking them at this problem, and they're just dying hand over fist.
Oh, yeah.
Because of many, many reasons. It's sad. It really is.
This is not the first time that somebody had the idea to put together like a lock system.
Mm-hmm.
That was thought like back in 1st century BC, like way back.
Way on back.
And so they had these flash locks they would put in China that it basically is just a system to allow the water to build up against them.
Mm-hmm.
But then, did you read who did?
Da Vinci.
Yeah.
It all goes back to Da Vinci.
Wasn't that cool? Did you look at the sketch?
I did look at the sketch.
There is a sketch of the 2-panel door that they use for the lock system. And
it was from Leonardo da Vinci.
done by Da Vinci.
That is pretty freaking cool. Still there today.
That's some evergreen design right there.
That is some evergreen design. Goodness.
And then much like the Hoover Dam, this particular canal is not like this record setter, and its categories ranks 9th among the largest in lock systems in the world. So, but at the time was just like shattering records left and right.
Let's get into some of the labor force.
Yeah.
Let's get to the labor force, because that's like we had kind of touched on that with the number of lives that were lost when France started in 1881. Over the span of 7 years, 20,000 laborers were killed or died as a result of this construction project, right? So there were approximately 60,000 people involved in the American efforts. It's not counting France in the American efforts.
Right.
some old rail cars. They were turned into bunkhouses. There were a bunch of other workers that came from Europe and Asia, but typically the best jobs went to white people. Mm-hmm. This is the time that we lived in at that point. So they came, though, because steam shovel operators, locomotive engineers, and accountants could make $200 a month, which is the equivalent of $7,000 today. Good paying jobs for white society. For everybody else, not so much. It was very rough on a lot of other people. And so I was reading through this, and honestly, I'm just saddened at where we were at in society at the time. And thankful for some of the crap that has happened in recent years to move away from this kind of garbage.
Well, I mean, the fatalities involved in the project, we're dealing with what they figure about 500 lives for every mile that the canal has in it. So around 25,600 lives lost.
They're counting lives by the mile in this project.
I mean, just crazy. And you think about how far we've come in safety because, I mean, we'd literally just throw bodies at a project until it was done.
This is trenching, right? Essentially.
Dredging
and all of that, right? And I mean, even today, that is still a dangerous activity. Like you could take any OSHA course on that. And that's immediately one of the things that is talked about.
Well, interesting too. Yeah. I mean, you're digging through a rainforest or, you know.
That was a very interesting point. Yeah.
You don't think about the fact that you pull out all the vegetation and now you've destabilized all the soil. And so they had this huge problem of mudslides that occurred after they destabilized the soil by pulling all the vegetation out of it. I guess in a very kind of micro sense, the erosion control that we do takes all of that into consideration. I mean, you got a kind of like a wooded lot. You go out, you clear the wooded lot, and all of a sudden you got mud running everywhere. Well, that's kind of what's happening in a macro sense with the Panama Canal. So these mudslides are washing out and creating problems with trying to make the work go forward because I'm dealing with a mudslide.
Yeah.
Crazy. I mean, and also other jobs and other tools. There's a lot of railroad that has to be laid down for all of this. So there was one tool.
Yeah, I have something on that. Because you notice when France came in and they honestly, they got their butts handed to them on this project big time. And I'm not going to say the Americans did a ton better. That's not what I'm saying. But they did lose fewer lives and it did happen quicker. And I think that is partially due to some of the equipment that was implemented.
Yeah.
All right. So this is one of those things where, you know, you see some of these different things come in. I think it was the Americans lost 7,000-ish, somewhere in there, while France, whenever they did it, was 20,000.
Right.
I think that there was a lot of new innovation that was happening during that period of time to allow for less loss of life. Because you put an equipment operator in there instead of 300 guys,
right?
You know, toting crap on their back. Now, still old school steam powered stuff. It's not fast, but I mean, at least it's making a difference in golly, I think quality of life on the job too at that point. But yeah, you had mentioned the rail systems.
Yeah, there's a tool they called the track shifter.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, track shifter? It is exactly what it sounds like. They had a tool that would kind of like ride the rails. And it would have, you know, these almost like, looks like outriggers on it.
Mm-hmm.
And the ability to just flat pick up and shift a train track.
Mm-hmm.
Just pull it over. And the massive amount of manpower that used to take, I mean, it cut down on the manpower to relocate a track.
Yeah, Lee put that in here. He said, too, it took less than a dozen men operating one day to move 1.6 kilometers of track. And if you were to do that with just men, it would require 600.
600 men. That's a good machine.
That is a good freaking machine.
That's a great tool right there.
That is a very great tool. The other one was the dirt spreader.
Yeah.
That was another one that was implemented. Had steel wings. It could be raised or lowered. Sorry, I just made like a birdie sort of thing with my arms here. Did the work of approximately 6,000 men working by hand.
Crazy, man.
Golly.
So all in, the initial construction fleet, 560 drills, 50 cranes, 20 dredges. You got giant hydraulic rock crushers, you got cement mixers, you got the pneumatic power drills that they used. Think about, this is something Lee noted, just think about the logistics. Like this isn't in your backyard.
No.
The logistics of getting all of this equipment to the place it needed to go, because depending on how far down the canal you are, like you got to get it all the way inland.
Mm-hmm.
And so very huge project, just logistically getting tools where they need to be.
Yeah.
I mean, really, the likes of which the world had not seen at the time. There was a large effort in just mobilizing for this thing.
Yeah.
You've got chief engineers that are dropping like flies.
Yes, and not because they're dying, but because they're just quitting.
So
yeah.
Three chief engineers. You start out with John Finley Wallace. You go to John Frank Stevens, who resigns after just 20 months, and a actual direct visit by the president, where I guess it was not going so well. And I love this little note. It says apparently his wife convinced him to take the job.
Yeah, I saw that.
Maybe she heard about the whopping $25,000 salary a year, the equivalent of an $800,000 salary today, second to only the president as it pertains to government salaries at the time. So the president was the only one in the government making more than the chief engineer on this project. Tell me that is not crazy.
Mess, dude.
What Stevens did offer the project, and I thought that this was, you know how I have a love for using creativity to solve a problem and bring some efficiency to a project.
Yeah.
Love the problem-solving aspects of what we do, like just getting into
getting into the weeds.
Many times, I think I want to do an episode on this one. Another book I've been listening to. We'll get into that another time. But we gravitate to things that are less simplistic when we're trying to solve a problem. Like we throw more at something instead of
less
trying to take something away to solve a problem.
Yeah.
And this is interesting because rather than saying, well, how do I build this lock system all the way through, he sees the, and I'm going to butcher this pronunciation, the Chagres River.
Okay.
So Gatun Lake is like a man-made lake. It's the largest man-made lake in the world at the time. The function of this lake is by damming this river and allowing this lake to form. Now, since I've got the lake, I don't necessarily have to have this lock system going through. So I just stick a dam in the river, allow the water to pile up, and now all of a sudden I've got this giant lake to go through. So when you go through the Panama Canal, you're going to actually, was it Lincoln Bay or Lincoln Bay? When you come into that, you get through the initial lock system, then you come out into Gatun Lake. And you go through Gatun Lake for a spell. And then you're back into the lock system.
So, and on researching this, I had no idea that was the case. Like
I
literally thought it was just like, like it was
I'm thinking
canal,
this tunnel of locks that just go all the way through.
It is like a straight shot on both ends of it, with all the different lock systems and everything. But in between those different straits, then you've got this lake.
Yeah.
That stitches everything together.
Lake.
It's huge. Massive, massive lake.
By the time you get down to the third chief engineer, George Washington Goethals, he's an ex-Army general and engineer. And it's basically like,
He's a West Pointer.
you can't leave. Like,
Yeah.
you're on assignment here. You're not leaving. You're finishing the project.
Yeah,
So they
yeah.
kind of took care of the quitting problem by just hiring somebody who can't quit. And this guy goes to war, like literally just kind of thinks of this thing as like a battle against the land, and just takes it to the land until he bludgeons it into submission. So I guess maybe they needed a general that was used to fighting wars to go in and try to take care of this thing.
Yeah.
But he literally attacked the project.
Take no prisoners mentality for sure is what got this thing done. I want to talk about the economic stuff. Okay. So we've gone through the toll on workers, like labor force. We kind of talked about how this project was plagued literally and figuratively with people leaving. So like we've got these chief engineers, they keep leaving. And it's taken years and years and years for it
Did
to
you
actually
catch
get
the malaria
constructed.
bit?
No. What part of it?
I mean, obviously.
I knew malaria, but
malaria.
What about it?
And yellow fever. Like, so, and there was a little sidebar on this, but malaria, they're trying to figure out malaria and yellow fever, like why everybody's getting it. And even the name of it, like the origination point was like Italian for bad air or something. They just believed that it was airborne.
Yeah.
And somewhere along the way, they figured out during this project that it was being caused by mosquitoes. So they finally trace it back to its origination point. And so now they start solving for the mosquito issues, and they start making sure that there's not standing water around, and they start making sure that people have screens on their doors. And so they start doing things about the mosquito population, dramatically reduces the death toll due to yellow fever.
Interesting.
And I mean, it was kind of a discovery of being down there in the midst of it. So
Yeah.
thought it was interesting. So on the toll, heavy toll, but then there were some things that were discovered that had some enduring benefit.
Yeah. So, the economic aspect of this. All right. In the first year, it was fully open to civilian traffic in 1922. Shipping costs dropped 31%.
Yes.
It split the amount of time that you were traveling in half, because you were going from 13,000 miles to 5,200 miles.
Yes.
So more than half.
Yeah.
Brings your shipping costs down immensely. So, you see why there was pressure to get it done is because overall the economic impact would, I guess in their mind would outweigh the human toll of this whole project.
Well, you can be to LA and back, from New York to LA and back in the same amount of time it used to take you to get all the way around. And I think there's also something to be said for the nature of the seas. So when you're going down there around the tip of South America, that's not like the easiest passage.
Yeah.
So a lot more still and calm water going this way.
Yeah. No, I just thought that was interesting that the shipping costs were dropped that much by this project. And I'm like, I see the reason for the pressure, but also it's played a big role in the U.S.'s economic and military, dominance, honestly. Like that's played a huge part of it.
Yes.
Strategically, it was a good move. But starting in 2023, a drought has slowed canal activity. So it's the future is we're not really sure what's going to happen with the Panama Canal. Now we have air travel and air transportation, which there's a very different things, but at the same time, we do have more means to get goods back and forth.
We do.
Not in such mass, but golly.
Hey, the shipping lane thing is still very much in the front of news. We recently had the bridge collapse in Baltimore.
Gosh.
You remember the Suez Canal debacle?
Yeah.
So when these shipping lanes start to be shut down,
Yeah.
big impacts.
Dude, yeah, the Baltimore thing is like, I saw that happening. Like I was scrolling TikTok and I saw the footage of that collapse, as I'm sure a lot of people did. That is, man, that was insane.
I mean,
that was insane.
We're gonna see an impact on the car industry as a result of that, right?
12 million people went across that bridge every year. I think that was the number. So yeah, I mean, that's going to have impact as well, but holy smokes, man. Yeah. Hearts and everything are with anybody who is connected with that might be listening. That is terrible, terrible news. Anyway, so there's Panama Canal. Like, what are some of your takeaways on this?
Well, considering the fact that Lee put these cool bullet points at the front.
So you're just going to steal from Lee. You're not going to draw your own crap. Okay, well, I got you.
Maybe I agree with Lee.
Well, maybe, okay. You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to do that. Word for word. I'm just going to read this.
Maybe I just word for word agree with everything that he put down. Obvious takeaway of the geopolitical impact of this thing, as you just mentioned.
Yep.
The timing of this, the early 1900s, you've got 2 world wars coming.
Yeah.
And this was a very timely project to be able to open up a shipping lane that would be able to cut our distance down from one side of our country to the other and be able to travel cargo in mass through this lock system. Obviously, some medical innovation that went down. Spotlight has to be put on and attention paid to the safety concerns or non-requirements, some of the oppressive hiring practices that were put in and employed for this project, because it was kind of a, it's worth the human expense type of attitude. Like, there's no human life that is worth too much to throw at this. And I am thankful that our mentality on construction projects has now changed, that we, try to value the human life first.
Yeah.
But almost as in war, human beings, human life is seen as almost like collateral damage.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was somewhat of the mentality here.
Yeah.
So very unfortunate there.
For sure.
And I think something we can look back on and learn from.
One thing that I'll take away from this is that robotics in construction have been coming for a long time.
Okay.
So like you see the equipment usage in here and the number of lives, I think we can probably attribute a lot of lives saved to equipment being used, right? So 600 men having to, do something instead of a machine with 12 guys on it. You think about heat exhaustion that might take place in that, exposure to mosquitoes and malaria and all of these different things. Equipment really was the reason for a lot of the safety improvements, I would say. It's not, obviously it's not great still, but I think a lot of those safety improvements happened as a result of that.
Okay.
And so I'm excited for the robotic aspect of construction. I'm curious to know what the next 100 years holds in that regard, because I feel like the safety should continue to improve the more we can offload over there, right?
You bring that up, and did you read about how they were makers of artificial limbs that were competing for government contracts on this? Because, the injuries were so prevalent. And we talk about deaths.
Like injury-wise, golly,
a maker of artificial limbs following this project and competing for its business. There were so many artificial limbs necessary, one of them boasting that their limbs were most suitable for the climate and conditions of the locality because they were waterproof, because they wouldn't rot. And that was to get those injured workers back into the job just as quickly as possible. There was a morale issue here. And I think thought all of a sudden
Yeah.
These chief engineers had to give thought to the human being. They worked hard to try to bring the wives of the men that were down there working, like to get families to come, to get the kids to come, because they realized like when the men were with their family, it cut down on like
all sorts of
gambling and drinking and prostitution, everything else that people were involved in.
Yeah.
So like morale was low. Like one of the things that they were trying to solve for was worker morale. I think something that we've got our radar on now, it's like, how do I get buy-in on this site?
Yeah.
And get my workers to think I'm building something awesome and I'm actually pleased to be involved in it. Like, how do I help them see the cathedral that they're building?
Yeah.
And that was an early problem that they had here because this was it was a bad project to work on.
Worker morale is a good connection, I think. Because, again, that's something that we're still feeling to this day.
Oh, yeah.
Big time. And I wouldn't even really say that that's like just in construction. I would say that is kind of across the board for a lot of things. But, I mean, as something, as I'll say, simple as realizing, hey, maybe people having their families with them will boost their morale, you know? Like, I know for me, being out of town, doing work kind of sucks. Like I miss my family. I want them with me. And so if I had to do that for an extended period of time, again, it just sucks. And you would end up falling into a bunch of crap as a result of that. I would think, you know.
The money doesn't solve all the problems.
No, it doesn't.
Like they were throwing money. They even had to come up. I mean, they gave 6 weeks of vacation time to these guys.
Clarification on that one though.
To the white guys. Which was another,
which sucks again, but
hey, at least the whole side of that, like,
right, yeah,
treating people as human beings. So a lot of lessons to be learned here.
Civil rights, you know, that's
we've come a long way.
We have come a long way
in so many regards.
Got a long way to go, but still, guys, I don't know. It's really interesting to look at this, learn from it, see some of the different elements that are at work in this massive project, like huge freaking project that affects, honestly, our lives every day. Like shipping is a big part of our lives, whether you realize it or not.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, guys, there you go. There's Panama Canal. If you got any other interesting thoughts or things that you found cool on this, hit us up. contact@brospodcast.com. You can go shoot us an email with any thoughts, anything that we missed. Might get a mention in a future episode. You don't know. Maybe it will. Or even a 5-Minute Friday. So, guys, like Eddie's shirt says, go build something awesome.